Welcome back to All This Man, here with your star, Assata. And today we're going to be doing add/subtract integers.
Okay, so here we have a number line, right? We got a number line, and we're going to add and subtract integers. Now, what's an integer? Tell the people.
A number with a decimal like or fraction like number.
Say that again. I didn't quite hear that.
A number without a decimal like
Without or with?
Without.
All right, pronunciate that. Without.
Without a decimal like or a fraction like number.
Right. So 3.6 is not an integer. 1/2 is not an integer. All right. 1 is an integer. -5 is an integer. -5.8 is not an integer. 2 3/4 is not an integer. Right? Those are all examples. That's an example of what's not an integer. 0 is an integer. 2 is an integer. 5 million is an integer. 826,000 is an integer, right? If it's got a decimal connected to it, or it is a decimal, or it's got a fraction connected to it, or it is a fraction, like 2 3/4, that has a fraction connected to it. That's not an integer. All right, so we need to know math vocabulary and math terminology, right, Assata? All right, so now we got a bunch of examples. We got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 examples. All right, where we're adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. Positive and negative numbers, which is very important. And that's why I have this number line drawing here, right? Going from -9 on the negative side all the way to +9 on the positive side. And me and Assata earlier today were working on some of the methods for adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. So let's get started. Assata, this says 1 plus -8. How can I rewrite 1 plus -8 in a simpler form?
1 plus, wait.
How can I rewrite 1 plus -8 in a simpler form? What does it mean when you're adding a negative? What is another way to say you're adding a negative?
Oh, subtract.
You are doing regular subtraction. Regular, plain, old subtraction. So you rewrite this as 1 minus 8. That's it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, how do you figure out what 1 minus 8 is using a number line? How do you do it?
We go from 1 and count back 8.
And why are you going to the left? Why not go to the right?
Because it's a negative number. And we're subtracting.
Because we're subtracting. See, there are rules to this. Math has a bunch of rules. Respect the rules and keep repeating the rules until you memorize the rules. You started this number. This is +1. The minus sign means you move to the left. 8 means you move 8 spaces. You start at 1, you move to the left because of the minus sign, and you move 8 spaces because there's an 8 right here. Where do you end up at?
-7.
-7, correct. -7. Now, -7 plus 9. Do we need to rewrite this?
No.
No, we do not. Where do we start at?
-7.
Which is right there. Which direction do we move in?
The right.
Why do we move to the right?
Because it's addition.
Because we're doing addition. Whenever we do addition, we move to the right. Just like, because that's where the positive numbers are. Plus sign, plus sign. Plus sign, plus sign. How many spaces do we go?
9.
So where do we end up at?
2.
+2. Thank you. That's correct. All right, -5 plus -8. Do we need to rewrite this?
Yes.
And what do we turn it into?
-5 minus 8.
-5 minus 8. Adding a negative is the same thing as doing regular subtraction. Adding a negative is the same thing as doing regular subtraction. Regular subtraction. Adding a negative is regular subtraction. Where do we start at on the number line?
-5.
-5. Which direction do we move?
Left.
Left. How many spaces?
8.
Where do we end up at?
-13.
-13, which is off of this number line. But just because the number is not shown on this number line doesn't mean that that can't be the correct answer. So if you're ever using a number line that you might get in school or get from somewhere else or online or in a textbook, just because the answer that you end up with is not on that number line doesn't mean that that's a wrong answer, right? Because numbers go on forever. So this is -13, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, -5. Oh, this is different. What's this called?
A double Negative.
This is called a double negative. Now, just because there's another negative sign in front of the 5, that does not mean it's called a triple negative. Right, Assata? Right? So anyway, double negative means that there are minus signs in between the numbers. In between the numbers. Now, there might be some confusion about which one is a negative and which is a minus sign. Minus signs and negative signs are essentially the same thing, basically. They're basically the same thing, right? This will be considered a minus sign. This is a negative sign because it's attached to the 5, right? It's attached to the 5. But they basically represent the same thing. So this double negative becomes what?
Positive.
Positive or addition. It becomes addition. So say -5 plus 5. So where do we start at on the number line?
-5.
-5. Which direction do we move in?
Right.
To the right. How many spaces?
5.
So we end up at where?
0.
0. So that's going to be 0. Now, -1 plus 4. Do we need to rewrite this?
No.
Nah. Where do we start at?
-1.
-1 is right there. Which direction do we move in?
Right.
How do you know to move to the right?
Addition.
Because it's addition. How many spaces?
4.
Where do we stop at?
3.
So -1 plus 4 is 3. All right, you're on a roll now. What's -4 minus -2?
That's a double negative.
So because it's a double negative, what does that mean? What do you change it into?
An addition.
Tell them.
An addition problem.
Tell me what the addition problem is. Tell them what the addition problem is.
-4 plus 2.
Tell them.
-4 plus 2.
Throw that camera shot. I thought you was a star. -4 plus 2. What does that equal? Start at -4. Which direction do you move?
Right.
To the right, how many spaces?
2.
What do you end up at?
2. -2.
Yeah, that's 2. This is -2. That's the difference. -2. Good job. -7 minus -7. That's another double negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the double negative?
Becomes an addition problem.
Becomes an addition problem. What addition problem?
-7 plus 7.
-7 plus 7. You start at -7, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you add, you go to the left?
No, right.
Go to the right. How many spaces?
7.
Where do you end up at?
0.
Also, these are additive inverses. That's what these are called. -7 and +7. They're called additive inverses. That's a sophisticated term for exact opposites. -7 and +7. -7 and +7. Those are what we call additive inverses. Additive inverses. Memorize that. Additive inverses. You'll see that again. Next problem. -7 plus -6. How can I rewrite this?
Oh.
Plus a negative. Plus a negative. How can I rewrite it?
Subtract.
How can I rewrite it?
A -7 minus -6.
Try again. Why are you going to turn it into a double negative? Really?
How was that?
You just said minus -6. Did you hear yourself? You just said minus -6. Try again. Look at what you did right here. Look at what we did right there. Look at what we did right here.
Negative. How was that? Okay.
Rewrite it. How's it rewritten?
-7 minus 6.
Thank you. -7 minus 6. One minus sign. 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 Understand? You look confused. What are you looking at over here?
Nothing.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So -7 minus 6. What does that equal?
-13.
-7. Move to the left. 6 spaces. You end up at -13 if you count the spaces. You end up at -13. Notice that you should notice a pattern too. You notice a pattern? Instead of doing -7 minus 6, you could just do 7 plus 6 and get 13 and then give the answer a negative sign. You could just give the answer a negative sign. That's a trick. That you'll notice. What's this called? A double negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rewrite it. How would you rewrite it?
-2 plus 1.
-2 plus 1. -2 plus 1. -2 plus 1, where you start at?
-2.
-2. Move to the left or move to the right? Move to the right, how many spaces?
1.
1 space. -1. -1 plus, how you rewrite this one?
That's a positive.
How do you rewrite this one?
1 minus -7.
Why you keep creating double negatives?
What?
Why do you keep creating double negatives?
Is that not? Oh, 1 minus 7.
Did we do that right here?
No.
Is that a double negative?
No.
Is this a double negative?
No.
Is this a double negative? Yes or no?
No.
Then why would you do that right here? See, math is about consistency. Consistency. Once you understand the rule, you keep using the rule over and over and over again. You don't change the rule. Why would you change the rule? But this is why we practice, right? This is why we practice. So you'll remember, hopefully, when you see problems like this, to not create a double negative. You do not create a double negative. So what should this be rewritten as?
A 1 minus 7.
Say it again.
1 minus 7.
Say it again.
1 minus 7.
I asked you to repeat yourself because I heard you pause like as if you wanted to give it another negative sign. Why do you want to make it a double negative? Why do you want to do that? Why? Because you just want to get the wrong answer? But you just want the wrong answer? You just feel like you have to, you just need two negative signs, two negatives? One is not enough? A minus sign is not enough? Adding a negative is the same thing as regular subtraction. Notice how the emphasis on the word regular, right? Remember I said regular? Regular subtraction. How is it regular subtraction if it's a double negative? That's not regular subtraction. A double negative is not regular. There's nothing regular about a double negative. Regular means you got one minus sign. It's like first grade, you're doing 3 minus 2. 5 minus 3. That's regular. All right? So say it again.
1 minus 7.
You did it again. You was about to do it again. 1 minus 7. See how I said it? Real, like it just flows. 1 minus 7. 1 minus 7. 1 minus 7. No pause. No pregnant pause. No slight pause. Just 1 minus 7. So we start at 1, right? Which way do we move? To the right?
Left.
How do you know to move to the left?
Subtraction.
Subtraction. How many spaces?
7.
7. Where you end up at?
-6.
-6. Last but not least, you do this one by yourself. Tell them. Show them. Say it. Read it. Read the problem.
-8 minus -11. That's a double negative, so that would be turned into an addition sentence. So it would be -8 plus 11.
You are correct. It will become -8 plus 11. So in math, since math is a language, right? Math is a language. So you think of math as a language, just like the English language has synonyms, different words that have the same meaning. This is a different expression, but it has the same meaning as this. These expressions are synonyms. They are synonyms. But this synonym is easier to work with because it's easier to use the method that I told you where the first number is your starting point on the number line. The operation symbol tells you which direction to move. And the second number tells you how far to go. Starting point, direction, distance. Starting point, direction, distance. You could do that here, but this will be a starting point. This will be a direction. But then because that's got a negative sign also, it means you would do the opposite of that direction, which means instead of moving left, you would actually end up moving right. And this would still be a distance, but I prefer to just have you simplify. So you start at -8. Where's -8 at? And which direction do you move?
Right.
How many spaces?
11.
Where do you end up at?
-3.
-3?
No.
This?
Yes.
Okay. Last problem. Good job. You did good. I'm proud of you. All right? But you got to keep practicing. You got to keep practicing these. These got to become second nature, just like the multiplication facts and the division facts. Any last words? Anything you want to say to the people? All right. We'll see y'all later.